There is a brown bottle sitting in your medicine cabinet right now. It cost about $1. You have used it on a cut. You have forgotten it is there. The brown bottle you see on the screen, that one is what I am talking about. That same bottle decontaminates pharmaceutical clean rooms, places where one missed germ can kill a patient. Same molecule, same concentration, $1. And it does something the pest control industry has spent millions of dollars hoping you never figure out. It kills the pests in your house. It kills the larvae in your soil. It kills the fungus that draws them in the first place. It costs about $1 a gallon. There is a document from the United States Department of Agriculture dated 2015 that quietly confirms what the Amish have known for generations. I will tell you the exact name of that document before this video is over, and I will give you the one technique buried inside it that almost nobody outside of certified organic farming has ever heard. This works in the house you already own. You do not need a contractor, you do not need a permit, you need a brown bottle and about 10 minutes. I spent 32 years paying exterminators, quarterly contracts, emergency calls, special treatments for the attic. I added it up one night at my kitchen table, and the number made me sick. The first time I sat at a long pine table in a farmhouse outside Millersburg, Ohio, I asked the man across from me what he used for the ants in his pantry. He looked at me like I had asked him what he used to breathe. He pointed at a brown bottle on a shelf above the sink. 3 weeks later, the ants were gone. So were the silverfish. So was the mold under my sink. Let me start with the thing that drove me crazy for almost a decade. Fungus gnats. Those little black flies that hover around your houseplants and follow you from room to room. You swat them, you buy sticky traps, you repot the plant, they come back, they always come back, and the reason they come back is not the reason you think it is. A single female fungus gnat lays up to 200 eggs in 1 week. 200 in the top inch of soil that you keep moist because you love that plant. You are not growing a houseplant. You are running a nursery for an insect that breeds faster than you can vacuum. I tried everything. Cinnamon on the soil, letting the plant dry out until the leaves wilted, those little yellow sticky cards that catch maybe 1 out of every 50 adults while the other 49 are laying eggs you cannot see. I spent over $400 one year on products that did almost nothing. Then a woman named Sarah, who runs a greenhouse on the edge of a settlement near Berlin, Ohio, watched me complain about it for 10 minutes and finally said, very quietly, that her family had been using the brown bottle for as long as anyone could remember. She walked me to her potting bench, she showed me a measuring spoon and a 1-gallon jug. The mixture is 1 part 3% hydrogen peroxide to 4 parts water. You wait until the top inch of the soil is dry. You pour the mixture slowly into the soil as a drench, soaking the root zone. You will hear it. It fizzes. It bubbles. That sound is the peroxide breaking down into oxygen and water the instant it touches the organic material where the larvae are feeding. The larvae cannot survive it. Their soft bodies are oxidized in seconds. The eggs in the soil go with them. The adults that are still flying around have nothing left to lay into. Now here is the part the pest control industry does not want you to understand. After that fizzing stops, the only thing left in your soil is water and a tiny bit of extra oxygen, which your plant roots actually love. There is no chemical residue, there is no synthetic compound building up over time. The molecule destroys itself in the act of doing the job. Compare that to the typical commercial soil drench, which leaves behind compounds that linger for weeks and that you absolutely do not want near a tomato you are planning to eat. The same approach works on the leaves themselves. Mix 1 teaspoon of 3% hydrogen peroxide into 1 gallon of water. Pour it into a spray bottle. Coat the tops and the undersides of the leaves, because that is where aphids, spider mites, whiteflies, and mealybugs hide. These are all what entomologists call soft-bodied pests, meaning they lack the thick, waxy outer shell that protects beetles and other harder insects. The peroxide damages their cell membranes on direct contact. They do not get to walk away, they do not develop resistance, because you cannot evolve resistance to being chemically oxidized any more than a piece of paper can evolve resistance to fire. I want you to think about what that means. The pest control company that has been charging your neighbors $200 a visit is treating problems that a $1 brown bottle handles in 10 minutes. They are not lying to you exactly. They are just very careful never to mention the alternative, and there is a reason they are careful. Because if you understood what hydrogen peroxide actually is, you would never call them again. But the gnats and the aphids are only the beginning. Because the next thing I learned in that same kitchen near Berlin made me realize that the problem in most American homes is not the pest at all. The problem is the mold, and the pests are just the evidence. Here is the part that nobody told me for 30 years. Roaches, silverfish, drain flies, carpenter ants, even some species of mice are not random visitors, they are following moisture. They are following the smell of fungal growth inside walls, under sinks, behind dishwashers, and in basements. If your house keeps getting infested in the same spot year after year, no matter how many times you spray, it is because the conditions that attract them have never changed. The exterminator knows this. He has known it the entire time. He is just not paid to fix the moisture, he is paid to come back next quarter. The Environmental Protection Agency published guidance stating that if a moldy area in a home is less than about 10 square feet, which is roughly a 3-foot by 3-foot patch, the homeowner can safely handle it themselves. Anything larger or anything tied to ongoing water damage calls for professional remediation. But that 10 square feet rule is exactly where hydrogen peroxide becomes a quiet weapon. You pour 3% peroxide straight from the bottle into a dark spray bottle, you spray the affected area until it is wet, you let it sit for at least 10 minutes. That contact time is critical. You do not spray and immediately wipe. You spray and walk away. Then you come back, wipe it down, and let it air dry. The peroxide oxidizes the cell walls of the mold. It does not just bleach the color out the way chlorine bleach does, leaving the roots alive underneath the paint. It actually destroys the organism. There is a reason hospitals use peroxide-based protocols for surfaces where infection control is non-negotiable. The same molecule that disinfects an operating room costs you $1 at the pharmacy. Do not mix it with vinegar in the same bottle. Do not mix it with bleach. Do not mix it with ammonia. Use it on its own, on a tested surface, because it can lighten some fabrics and finishes. Test a small corner first. That is the only real precaution. I want to tell you about a farmhouse I visited in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, in the late autumn of one of those years when the rain just would not stop. There was a back room that had taken on some water through a corner of the foundation. In any English home I had ever been in, that room would have been treated with 3 different chemicals and a dehumidifier rental. The family that lived there used a spray bottle of peroxide, a stiff brush, a bucket of plain water, and about an hour of work. The room smelled like a clean rain after they were done. 6 months later, I came back. No return of mold, no pests, no lingering chemical smell, just dry wood and quiet air. Now, the carpenter ants. People panic about carpenter ants because they think the ants are eating the wood. They are not. Carpenter ants excavate wood that is already softened by moisture and fungal decay. If you find them in a windowsill or a door frame, what you have actually found is a hidden water problem the ants discovered before you did. Spray the visible ants and the entry point with a 3% peroxide solution at full strength. They die on contact, just like the aphids did, because their soft inner tissues are not built to withstand oxidation. But the real fix is to find the source of the water. The ants are a flashing yellow light on a dashboard. You do not fix the car by unscrewing the light. Drain flies are the same story. They look like tiny moths near your sink or your shower. Most people grab an aerosol can and waste $20 on something that knocks down the adults but never touches the breeding site. The breeding site is the slimy film of organic material inside your drain. Pour a cup of 3% hydrogen peroxide directly down the drain at night when no water will follow it for several hours. The peroxide bubbles through the biofilm and destroys the organic layer the larvae are feeding on. No biofilm, no larvae, no more flies. Repeat once a week for 3 weeks. The infestation is over without you ever having to call anyone. This is the pattern that took me years to see. The pests are not the problem, they are the alarm system. And the brown bottle does not just silence the alarm, it removes the conditions that set it off. Now, I want to tell you something about the history of this molecule, because it matters more than you think. A French chemist named Louis-Jacques Thénard first isolated hydrogen peroxide in 1818 in a laboratory in Paris. He called it eau oxygénée, Oxygenated water? He had no idea that 2 centuries later, a homeowner in Ohio or Tennessee or Oregon would be using his discovery to kill the ants marching across a kitchen counter. Thenard worked with barium peroxide and dilute acid, and the substance he produced was so unstable that it could only be made in tiny quantities. It would not be until 1894 that a German chemist named Richard Wolfenstein figured out how to distill it into a concentrated form. The first factory to produce it in large quantities opened in Berlin, Germany in 1873. By 1888, an entry in the Journal of the American Medical Association referenced an earlier experiment from 1863 confirming the presence of hydrogen peroxide in ordinary rainwater. Rainwater. The same molecule has been falling on every Amish farm in Lancaster County and Holmes County for as long as those farms have existed. They simply paid attention to what it could do. And the pest control industry has spent the last 70 of those 200 years convincing you to forget it. Here is what kept bothering me after I learned all of this. Why is none of this in any mainstream guide? Why did my exterminator never mention it? Why did the gardening magazines I subscribed to for 20 years never tell me? The answer is in a regulatory document, and once you understand it, you understand exactly why this knowledge was buried. The United States Environmental Protection Agency and the United States Department of Agriculture National Organic Program have both formally approved hydrogen peroxide for use in certified organic crop production. That means a commercial organic farmer, the kind of farmer who is legally prohibited from using the synthetic pesticides that conventional exterminators rely on, is permitted to use hydrogen peroxide directly on food crops, in irrigation lines, and on soil. The same molecule, the same concentration range, the same $1 brown bottle. The federal government has examined it, tested it, regulated it, and quietly cleared it for use on the food you eat. Now, some entomologists will tell you that hydrogen peroxide is not labeled for use as a pesticide by the EPA, and therefore using it for pest control is technically off-label. I want you to think carefully about that argument. The reason hydrogen peroxide is not labeled as a pesticide is because no company has paid the registration fees, which can run into the hundreds of thousands of dollars per active ingredient per target species. There is no financial incentive for a corporation to register a substance that sells for $2 a bottle and that anyone can buy without a license. The lack of EPA pesticide registration is not evidence that the substance does not work. It is evidence that nobody stands to make enough money from registering it. Those are two completely different things, and the conventional industry blurs them on purpose. There is a study I want to mention that came out of the University of Florida in 2009, conducted by a plant pathologist named Dr. Aaron Palmatier. He was looking at hydrogen peroxide as a treatment for fungal pathogens on ornamental plants, and what he found was that a 3% solution applied as a foliar spray reduced spore germination on the leaf surface by between 60 and 90% depending on the species of fungus. He was not studying insects, but the relevance is direct. If hydrogen peroxide can destroy fungal spores on contact at concentrations available to any homeowner, it can do the same to the soft tissues and respiratory openings of small arthropods. The mechanism is the same. Oxidation does not care whether the target is a mildew spore or a cockroach trachea. It just oxidizes. The pest control industry in the United States is worth approximately $26 billion annually. That number has roughly doubled in the last 15 years, even though the actual pest pressure in American homes has not doubled. What has doubled is the marketing, the contract structures, the quarterly service plans, and the fear. The industry has figured out that selling you a one-time treatment is far less profitable than selling you an annual subscription, and so the entire model has shifted toward recurring revenue. Your roach problem is not a problem to be solved, it is a customer relationship to be maintained, and the longer you depend on them, the more your home becomes a node in a revenue stream that flows quarterly into corporate accounts in cities you have never visited. Nobody can put a patent on H2O2. Nobody can mark it up by a factor of 400 and sell it in a shiny aerosol can with a cartoon roach on the label. Because the moment you walk into a drugstore and see the brown bottle for $1.98, the entire illusion collapses. That is why you have not heard about this. Not because it is dangerous, not because it is ineffective, not because it is unproven, because it is unmonopolizable. So before I give you the last and oldest piece of this, the one technique buried inside a USDA document that almost nobody outside of certified organic farming has ever heard, here is where everything lives. Every method, every technique, every piece of knowledge I have pulled out of these communities is gathered in one place in the description below. It is called the Amish Home System. Now stay right here, because what comes next is the reason I built this entire video around. Now, if you already own a house, and you are thinking this only applies to people building from scratch or running a farm, stay with me, because this next part is specifically for you. There is no permit involved. There is no contractor, there is no inspection, there is only what you can do this weekend in the house you have lived in for years. Start in the basement, take a flashlight and walk the foundation walls slowly. You are looking for two things: dark staining on concrete and any place where the air smells slightly sour or earthy. Those are the spots where moisture has been migrating through for a long time and where mold has been quietly establishing itself behind whatever paint or sealer was applied at some point in the past. Mix 3% hydrogen peroxide 1:1 with water in a dark spray bottle. Dark because peroxide breaks down rapidly in light. That is one of the reasons the bottle from the store is brown. Spray every suspicious spot until it is wet. Walk away for 15 minutes, come back with a stiff brush and scrub, wipe with a clean cloth, let it dry. Go to the bathroom next. Pull back the silicone caulk line where the tub meets the wall and inspect it under bright light. If you see any black or pink discoloration along that seam, spray it with the same solution and let it sit. Pink staining in particular is a sign of a specific bacterium that loves bathroom moisture and that draws certain insects to it. Peroxide eliminates it. Run the same treatment around the base of the toilet, around the rim of the sink drain, and inside the drain itself with the cup of full-strength solution I mentioned earlier. Move to the kitchen, pull out the dishwasher if you can. The floor underneath a dishwasher is one of the most consistently moist surfaces in any American home, and it is one of the favorite breeding grounds for the German cockroach. Spray, wait, wipe. Do the same behind the refrigerator, do the same under the sink. Pay attention to the corner where the drain pipe disappears through the cabinet floor. That gap, where the pipe meets the wood, is the single most common entry point for roaches and ants in American kitchens. Saturate the wood with peroxide solution and let it dry completely. If the wood is soft or crumbling, you have a bigger moisture problem that needs fixing, but the peroxide will at minimum kill the fungal colony that is softening it and stop the cycle long enough for you to address the source. Now, go outside. Walk the perimeter of your foundation. Look for any place where wood touches soil, where mulch is piled against siding, or where downspouts are dumping water within 3 feet of the house. Those are the moisture bridges that bring pests in from the yard. You cannot redo your landscaping today, but you can take that same 1:1 peroxide solution in a pump sprayer and saturate the bottom course of your siding and the first 18 inches of soil along the foundation. You are interrupting the fungal film that pests follow like a road map. Do this once in the spring and once in the fall. The whole perimeter walk takes about 20 minutes with a pump sprayer. The solution costs you about 30 cents per gallon. A gallon covers roughly 100 feet of foundation. If your house is 200 feet around, that is 60 cents to create a barrier that interrupts every pest highway leading into your walls. 60 cents, twice a year. Compare that to the $400 a quarterly contract costs, and you understand why nobody in the industry wants you to know this. I want you to notice something. Everything I just described costs less than $10 in materials. Less than $10. To do in one weekend what a pest control company would charge you between $300 and $800 to do, and what they would have to come back to do again 3 months later. The Amish families I have known do not do any of this on a calendar. They do it when they notice something. They walk their homes, they smell the air, they look at the wood, they treat the spot, they move on. The brown bottle sits on the shelf until it is needed again. But there is one more thing I have to tell you, because if I do not, the rest of this is incomplete. And it is the thing the pest control industry has been most careful to keep quiet about. Because it does something that aerosol cans and synthetic foggers physically cannot do. When hydrogen peroxide is converted from a liquid to a vapor, the behavior of the molecule changes entirely. A liquid spray settles on surfaces, it coats what it touches. But a vapor is different. A vapor infiltrates. It moves into the cracks between floorboards. It enters the gap behind a baseboard. It penetrates into the seam where a door frame meets the wall. It reaches places that no liquid droplet can physically access. And here is the part that should make every homeowner stop and think. Vaporized hydrogen peroxide has been the standard decontamination method in pharmaceutical manufacturing clean rooms, in hospital isolation wards, and in high-security biological research laboratories for decades. These are environments where the consequence of missing 1 square inch of contamination can be measured in human lives. They do not use commercial foggers, they do not use synthetic chemical bombs, they use vaporized hydrogen peroxide, the same molecule sitting in your bathroom cabinet right now. And you do not need industrial equipment to take advantage of this principle in your own home. When you apply a properly diluted peroxide solution in an enclosed space, the natural off-gassing of the solution contributes vapor pressure to the air in that room. The vapor follows the same physical laws it follows in a pharmaceutical clean room. It seeks out the gaps, it penetrates the crevices, it reaches the hidden harborage areas where adult pests and their eggs are sheltering. This is the principle behind a technique I learned from an older man in Holmes County, Ohio, who told me his father used it during the 1940s on the family farm. You take a room that has had repeated pest activity. You close the windows and the interior door. You take that 1-to-1 peroxide and water solution in a pump sprayer and you mist the room. You mist the floor, the lower walls, the inside of the closet, and any soft furnishings you are willing to dampen. You do not soak. You mist. Then you leave the room closed for at least 2 hours. The liquid does its work on the surfaces it touched. The vapor, slowly off-gassing from those wet surfaces, does its work everywhere the liquid could not reach. After 2 hours, open the windows. Let the room air out. The only residue on every surface and in every crevice is water and oxygen. I did this in a guest bedroom in my own house that had been quietly hosting silverfish for 3 years. 3 years of catching them in the bathtub, in the closet, behind the books on the shelf. 1 afternoon of vapor treatment. I have not seen one since. That was almost 4 years ago. I have since done the same treatment in my basement, in my attic storage area, and in the garage. Each time, the result was the same. Whatever was living in those spaces stopped living there, and the only thing I left behind was water and oxygen. Now I owe you the document name I promised at the beginning. The research record I have been referring to is titled Hydrogen Peroxide Technical Evaluation Report, dated 2015, prepared for the United States Department of Agriculture Agricultural Marketing Service. It is a public document. Anyone can look it up. Inside that report is the technical basis for the federal approval of hydrogen peroxide in organic agriculture. And buried in the references is a study by a researcher named Al Maghrabi, published in 2006, on the sensitivity of plant pathogens to peroxide. That study, along with research on meloidigine, javanica, and tomato interactions published by Karaje in 2008, confirms what the Amish have done by feel for generations. The molecule destroys soft-bodied pests and the pathogens that draw them. It does so in concentrations a homeowner can buy at any pharmacy, and it does so with a residue profile of water and oxygen. But the secret finale I promised you is not in the report itself. It is in the gap between what the report documents and what the Amish actually do with the molecule. It is the one application that is so simple, so cheap, and so effective that I genuinely never see it discussed anywhere outside of a small number of traditional households. Here it is. You take an old rolled-up cotton rag. You soak it thoroughly in 3% hydrogen peroxide straight from the brown bottle. You wring it out just enough that it is not dripping. You place it inside any closed space where pests have been an ongoing problem. The bottom of a pantry, the back corner of a closet, inside a kitchen cabinet under the sink. You close the door. You leave it there overnight. The slow off-gassing of the rag turns that enclosed space into a miniature vapor decontamination chamber. The molecules find every crack and seam. By morning, the rag is mostly water. You take it out, throw it in the laundry, and you are done. Repeat once a month in the spaces that have given you the most trouble. That is it. That is the entire technique. It costs about 15 cents per treatment. It uses no synthetic chemicals. It leaves no residue. And it does, on a small scale, exactly what a $1 million pharmaceutical clean room does on a large one. The first man who showed me that trick had been doing it for 40 years. His father had been doing it since the 1940s. His grandfather had been using peroxide for cuts and for the chicken coop since before the Second World War. There is a story I read in an old issue of Organic Gardening magazine from the August 1978 edition about a woman in rural Pennsylvania named Edna Hostetler who kept a quart bottle of hydrogen peroxide on her back porch and used it for 31 different purposes around the homestead. She used it to disinfect the milking equipment. She used it to clean the chicken waterers. She used it to soak seed potatoes before planting to prevent rot. She used it to spray the underside of the cabbage leaves to keep cabbage worms off. She used it to wash the dogs when they got into something they should not have. 31 uses, from one brown bottle, on one porch, in one small farm, in one corner of Pennsylvania. That woman is almost certainly gone now, but the knowledge she carried does not have to go with her. So, here is what I want you to take from all of this. The exterminator was never your friend. The quarterly contract was never necessary. The aerosol cans and the foggers and the special treatments for the attic were almost always a more expensive, more toxic version of something that has been sitting in your medicine cabinet your entire adult life. Somebody benefited from you not knowing this. Somebody funded the marketing budgets that made you think pest control required a uniform technician and a clipboard. Somebody made sure that the EPA approval of hydrogen peroxide for organic crop production never made it into a single commercial in your lifetime. And it was not the Amish. If you are the kind of person who believes that real knowledge has been quietly pushed aside to protect somebody else's quarterly revenue, you already know what to do next. You already know which cabinet in your kitchen holds the brown bottle. You already know which room in your house has been the source of the most trouble. The next step is yours, and it is small, and it is cheap, and it works. I want to hear from you in the comments. Specifically, I want to know which pest has cost you the most money over the last 10 years before you watch this video. Roaches, carpenter ants, fungus, gnats, silverfish, drain flies, mice. Pick the one that has bled your wallet the most and tell me in a comment below. I read every one of them, and the ones that come up the most are going to shape the next video I make. So leave the comment, even if it is just one word. This audience does not interact unless I ask directly, so I am asking directly. If this is the kind of knowledge you want more of, the kind that costs almost nothing to apply and that nobody in the conventional industry wants you to have, then subscribe to this channel. Not because it helps me, because it puts you inside a quiet movement of people who are recovering the practical wisdom that was taken from them one quarterly invoice at a time. The next video is going to cover a single white powder that costs about $3 at any grocery store and that the Amish use for 9 completely different purposes around the home and garden, including one that involves the wood stove that I genuinely could not believe the first time I saw it work. I will tell you the name of the powder, the exact measurements, and the document where the technique was first written down in 1936. You do not want to miss that one. The brown bottle has been on your shelf the entire time. So has the answer. Now you know.